Hello ladies, I'm Mrs. Sherman and I have a blog which I will leave the link for in the description box below. I don't have comments here on YouTube because I don't want to manage too much social media, and I do have comments on my blog. If you'd like to go over there and participate with us and leave a comment, my donate button is also on the side. And to those of you who have donated, thank you very much. It helps me so much, buys me a little time too, because I can do some things and get some things done, and I wanted to share something that I bought with some of your donations. If you are tired of the great big vacuum cleaners, this is a real featherweight light thing. It's a Bissell, and this part comes undone and you can take it out and do the windowsills and do your car, and it doesn't take bags, and it's $19 at Walmart. I am so glad to have gotten this, and I have to tell you that over the years we must have spent thousands on these big clunky vacuum cleaners that run over your foot and everything else, and you know, they have to have a bag, and they're just they take up a lot of space, and most of us now live in smaller houses, and I'm so glad to get rid of that kind of stuff and just have this little thing. Also, my little weak puny wrist can lift it up with one hand, and it's got great suction. I have one carpet left in my house that hasn't been replaced with wood, so I've got this for that, and also for taking the part out and, you know, vacuuming inside of the lower cabinets in the kitchen. So this money that you have sent me has helped a lot, makes life a little easier for me, a little more convenient. Also buys all those sewing notions that are going up in price. Even thread has gone up to nearly $3 or $4 a spool. It's just shocking. And today I am giving you a video so that you don't have to sit here and watch me. I'm not doing anything. There's no point in looking at the video, but you can carry this around, and I hope to speak enough, long enough for you to do a bedroom, take the sheets off, remake the bed with clean sheets, clean up the kitchen, put in a pile of laundry, even hang it out, and you can take your device with you and listen. And I know I like to listen to things when I am working. And when I was in the bathroom this morning getting my hair ready, I found a video. I couldn't tell you where it is, or what it was called, but it was about housekeeping in Disney World or Disneyland, and somebody had gone in to interview this remarkable woman who everyone liked so much they would ask for her services in the hotel where she worked. And she was teaching this man the man that was interviewing her, how she worked in the hotel and all the things she had to do, and it was quite a long list, and she showed him how long it would take her, and they both worked together and got things cleaned up, the bathroom and bedroom and the beds and everything. And she said that she was part of the act. She was preparing the stage for her role as a housekeeper, and that's how that's how they do that. And in the same respect, this is you. And if you're a homemaker, if you decided to stay home and be a full-time homemaker, you're creating around you the kind of setting that you want, the kind of stage that you want. And not that it's not real, because this is real life. And you're going to make life as pleasant as you can, first of all, for yourself, so that you'll have the mood that you need and the emotion and the stability to keep your family stable themselves, and to keep the troops happy, and to be able to guard and guide your home, and to be a good helpmeet. You can't be a good helpmeet to your husband if you are upset all the time, or if you are distracted, or you're not able to focus. So the first thing we want to talk about 3 things today, 3 or 4 things. I think I've forgotten what the 4th one was. Preparation, the work, and people, and probably mood too would be, well, I would add to that. And unfortunately, I can't read my notes all the time, but we'll do my best here. For preparation, you have to start, if you haven't got dressed yet, you're going to have to get dressed. And I remember saying to someone years ago, well, no one's going to see me today. But you will see yourself, and you will have a difference in your attitude according to how you've dressed. And today, of course, no one's coming. I don't have anyone, no one's going to call, no one's going to come over. I'm not leaving. I've got the doors and windows shut because it's farming harvest time and the dust and the chaff is flying around, and my husband is off with a couple of other men at a very important thing that they're doing together to help someone, and so he won't be coming in until I'm already asleep. And so why should I even bother? Why should I dress up? First of all, because it makes me feel better, and because I will know it. And I remember years ago, I think you can still get this somewhere, maybe on YouTube, a documentary I watched about the making of Gone with the Wind, on how they did it in one. They didn't have several takes. They did it in one take, and people weren't allowed to flub up or anything. Anyway, what it was also talking about was the costume, and various directors and producers and actors were interviewed about the costume. And the person that was conducting this film was insisting that even though the public couldn't see it, they had to have just like they had to have the authentic 1800s costume down to the last detail to look as authentic as possible. They also had to wear, the men had to wear the undershirts, and they had to wear the socks, and the women had to wear the petticoats exactly. It couldn't be some kind of just any old thing, even though no one would see it. And some of the actors said, well, why should we do that when no one's going to see it? And he said, yes, but you will know. They said, no one will know we have this underwear on, like this vintage underwear. And he said, well, but you will know, and that will have a difference in your approach and your mood and your attitude towards this role. And so that's why I say get up and get dressed. And I think a shower is the most important thing, because it's feeling of starting over. You know, when I'll tell you about this in a minute. My children were younger, and me too. We would have days when we just, I don't know, just couldn't seem to focus, and we're just a little bit on edge. And by 11 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, if we hadn't made any progress in our lives, what I would do was say, why don't we just everybody go and take their turn in the bathroom, take a shower, and put on clean clothes. Let's just start over. Brush your teeth and comb your hair and come out, and we'll just start over. We'll just pretend it's a brand new day. And you know, that just made such a difference. And I've seen this with myself. You know, just can't seem to get started, so I'll just start over. And you know, get dressed again and have a cup of tea. And if you're able to do that, I really highly suggest it. Today I am wearing a dress that I made with a Laura Ashley pattern. You can kind of tell by the sleeves. They had really big sleeves, and it has these little tucks down at the bottom here that I just love. And I've inserted some rickrack. And I want to tell you, if you're a sewer, you do not sew rickrack on after a garment has been made, because it won't curve. It has to be inserted between the facing and the dress and sewn on when you're doing the neckline. You can't just, anytime there's a curve, you actually cannot, even on the hem, you have to sew it inside and let it come out like this, and it doesn't work very well to sew it on top, although you can. But anyway, that's how I do it. Well, today the fabric it's a very nice sturdy cotton fabric, kind of has a lot of, it's not thin, and it's a David fabric from Walmart, and your contributions helped me buy it. And it also comes in red. It has little white flowers on it, little white daisies, I think. It comes in red and it comes in purple. Both of those are very pretty. And this one is, I guess I would call it a coral. And I'm using a teacup to go with the white flowers, although you probably can't see them. And I'm using a new computer, so I'm not sure about the quality of the video. Many people were complaining about the old computer, and you know, we keep everything from the olden days, and we'll just keep it until it totally is gone. And it's a bit emotional, you know, even though there were keys missing and everything, I knew how it worked, and it's an adjustment, you know, to start over. But anyway, I wanted to tell you about my teacup, and it is from Royal Albert. I don't know what year it was, but it seems to be in fairly good condition. My favorites, of course, are, oh, there's a nick in that one. I told you, when you are buying a teacup, go do like this in the store, in the Goodwill. If you feel a nick in it, don't buy it. Also, if the gold on the drinking area is worn off, or any of this area in here is worn off and down to the bone, don't buy it. My favorites are from Home Goods. They are new. They are very pretty. They're dishwasher safe. Some of them microwave safe. I don't have a microwave, but they I still wash them by hand. But those are my favorites. And this is, I have about 6 of these from Royal Albert. You never put these antique ones in the dishwasher. And so today we're going to talk about preparation, work, and people. And there might be one other. Now in preparation, let's go back to the spiritual part of preparation, and that is the amount of time that you need to spend in prayer before you begin your work. And one of the reasons is you need to make a mental list of everything you'd like to accomplish in the home. It can be quite daunting when you see the huge amounts of things that need to be done. And of course, you don't need to do it all in one day. And if you have young children, remember their needs come first and their care comes first. And some things you won't be able to get done. You just have to elongate the step, and it will take you longer. It still takes me longer. So with prayer, you're going to mentally list all the things you'd like to accomplish and all the people that you love that are in your family that you worry about. And when you start your prayers in the morning, you start praying for all these things, and it reduces the feeling of confusion and anxiety and defeat. So that it anchors you and it settles you. You've got to do this. And so do spend some substantial amount of time in prayer, not just a drive-by prayer or a fly-by prayer when you feel like you're in trouble. So you start your day out with that, and if you're starting over, go ahead and make your list and be sure and pray. And remember that you're working with a great God. You're not just serving these people. They're going to disappoint you someday, or maybe they are already. But little by little, people are just human beings. They might say something or not do something right or whatever, and you can be disappointed. Remember, you're working for the Lord. And remember, in the old, I believe it's in Ecclesiastes, is it? Whatever thy hand finds to do, work with all thy heart as unto the Lord, and not unto man, for ye serve the Lord God. Now, with appearance, I mentioned the Gone with the Wind thing, and I always remembered that I have sprayed a little perfume on, and you don't know that. You can't smell it, but I can, and I know I have it on. And no one's going to see me today. No one's going to feel the effect of what I've done for myself today, that I've combed my hair, but I know that I have, and it's the same as what they were telling them when they were putting the costumes on for this movie. Also, in coming here, I have tried several times to make a video and discovered that because I don't have a specific place that's a studio that's all set up, it's always a room that has something that needs to be done. So I'll be looking at something, stop the video and get up and go do it, and that's one of my problems. In fact, when my children were teenagers and we were all going to go to I believe a farm store where we were going to get a bunch of things for the property, and I wanted to go too, but I kept saying, I kept running back in and saying I've got to do this or get this or whatever, and one of the children said, keep an eye on Mom and get her out of the house before she discovers there's a cup in the sink or a blade of grass or some weeds in the garden, because I was trying to get myself automatically cleaning up so that I wouldn't get overwhelmed and get behind on many things. That's just a figure of speech. It was hyperbole. That is just a joke we had between us all. And so that's what happens why I don't do more videos. Now, because this is a homemaker support video, I don't want you to sit here and watch me. I'm not going to show you how to clean house. I'm not going to be doing anything, and there's nothing to see here. So what the purpose is you can carry this around with you and do things and get some work done. And I really appreciate the comments that you send that tell me I got the dishes done, I cleaned out a bookshelf, I folded some laundry, sorted a box of papers, and something else. So that just is very helpful because I know just how much can get done when you're listening to someone. Now, one of my favorite things is to put in a disc, a DVD, a movie, but with my new computer I wasn't able to, and so I thought of a couple of things to say that would keep you moving and still listening but not having to watch. And movies are fun to listen to. Sometimes you do stop and watch. So with this situation, this is just a homemaker support to support you as you go along. The three most, now I want to move on to, we want to do the preparation to prepare yourself, prepare your physical body so that you feel that you look good and you feel good, and wear something that makes you very happy. And it is good for you to be happy, because if you spend too much time in being morose, being negative, being unhappy, it affects your health actually. You know, the Bible talks about health, laughter being good medicine, and that's why I encourage you to be happy and to use figures of speech and develop a humor, because you can accomplish so much more if you're happy and if you're healthy, and they're intermingled together. So when we get to work, now I'm going to discuss that for a while. I've already discussed preparing yourself spiritually, preparing yourself physically is work. Now we're down to work, and that is there are several things in the house. I would say 4 things in the house that you must pay attention to. Even if everything's falling apart, there are 4 things that you must do before you tend to the rest of it. One is the kitchen with the dishes, especially because it is a sanitation problem. You must clean that kitchen every day, and you must load the dishwasher or wash the dishes. It must be done because it's a matter of health. If you have a family that is always sick, you might want to check into these 4 things and see if this is one of the problems. Must keep the kitchen clean. It isn't just the dishes. It's wiping the cabinets, wiping the table. You know, I use a spray bottle with vinegar, and I will be talking to you more about vinegar today. I just put straight white vinegar in it for cleaning. I use the apple cider vinegar for other things, but you can clean your table. You can clean your cabinet tops. You can even clean your floor with it, and I use that on everything, and the smell goes away. You can also make your own vinegars. You know, you can put a little lavender in it, and you can, you know, things from the garden. But your kitchen and your dining area, I would say, you know, would be categorized as one place, but this is where a lot of people neglect. And so wipe the table, clean it, do the dishes, clean the kitchen, you know, empty the sink trap. And the next thing would be the bathroom. Now, of course, naturally, there's bacteria in there. So every day, it has to be cleaned. And one thing I liked about joining Fly Lady when I joined that for a temporary amount of time was that there would be a certain time of day when things would be done, whether it needed it or not. And you might look at a bathroom and say, well, I cleaned that yesterday. But if you'll clean it every day, then it keeps the bacteria down, and you'd be amazed how much dirt you can get out of there even after one day. And there's the sinks, the toilets, the bathtub, and the floors, and this also helps with your health. So vinegar can be used in there too. You won't asphyxiate yourself if you use vinegar. And then the other thing is the laundry. You can't let dirty laundry sit in the house, especially if it's gotten wet. It starts to smell after a while. So if you want to keep a nice, fresh scent in your house, do your laundry. I use vinegar for that too, and everything smells normal and fresh. But those things, and then your trash. Pay that little extra for um, the garbage service, the trash service that comes and empties your barrel into the tip. Pay for that. It's your health. It's worth it. Don't let trash sit around week after week after week, because it attracts pests and rodents and that sort of thing. Get that taken care of and bag it properly so that animals can't get into it, and have it taken away every week and pay for it. Do without something in order to have that paid for. It will smell bad if you don't, and that will creep into your house. So pay for those things. There's so much that I could say about this, because years ago there was a law here. I'm out in Oregon here, but there was a law here, and I think it still stands, and that is that children cannot be endangered. And if you have this actually happened to a friend of mine. She got real neglectful in her home, and she didn't take her trash out, and she just started putting it out on the lawn or the porch or something, and didn't get it taken care of, and she had little children, and her place began to smell so bad and attract so many animals that a neighbor called Child Protective Services. Now, not everything about our laws is bad, because some things have been passed by actual groups of people and not actually politicians. But one of the laws here is that children have to be in a safe environment, and they can't be in an unsanitary environment. And so her house was so bad that these people, the inspectors, came out. And in any neighborhood, it doesn't really matter whether you have children or not, you're not allowed to let your house go so bad that it starts to be a danger to the neighbors around you. So the inspectors came out and said, if you can clean it up in 2 months, we won't put this on the record. We won't go any further with it and everything. So she has had a couple of friends come over and help her clean it all up, so that she could, live in peace and not worry about her family. But I was thinking the other day with that illustration, and it's a shame I even have to relate it to you. But what if we all looked at our houses that way? Would we be in danger of being a hazard to the neighborhood, or disobeying a law about cleanliness? We talked a little bit about being a good citizen and loving your country, and the Bible does speak of that. And being a good citizen is actually 2 things. If you want to love your country, then love your neighbor as yourself, and love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, the 2 great commandments of Christ. And when you love your neighbor as yourself, then you're going to love your family around you enough to create an environment for them that's clean and sanitary and healthy, and not allow things to get so bad. I do have a couple of hot spots that I'm working on, and I'm realizing that some things are going to take me 6 months to a year, like old books, which was my weakness at one time, is books. Every time I get a book in the mail, I'm thinking I wasn't going to do that anymore. I wasn't going to get another book. But I realize it's not going to be something you can clean up in a day. Some things in some rooms, especially if they are storage rooms, you're going to just be patient and just do a little part at a time. Just put 20 minutes into it at a time. And treat your family as though you want to keep them safe. And think about this lady who had the state services come out to warn her about the condition of her property and say, you're in danger of violating this code, the state code, and we can't allow you to have such a mess here, and we'll give you 2 months to clean it up. You think about that in terms of you. How bad does it look under your sink? How bad does it look in the bathroom? What about all those little corners? Why not get it cleaned up? Why not live up to that, some of those laws at the same time? And so with work, the 4 things are the dishes, the bathroom, the laundry, and the trash. So take care of those, and then you're free. I mean, take care of all of those before you even make a bed, before you even sweep, before you even do something, do your mending, or before you even do your correspondence. Make sure that those things are in place. You know, when you go to a hotel, you don't expect to have things that are not clean. So in a way, you are providing hospitality for your family. So you want to be like they are living in a hotel. Maybe not. Maybe you're not able to be the constantly on the run servant to them. They can take care of themselves and get their own things. But you want to make sure that you supervise the cleanliness and the sanitation in your home. So, remind you not to stand here and watch me. Just keep moving and keep working. And please leave me a list of everything that you got done while you were listening. I'm hoping to talk for an hour. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about work. What if you have trouble getting started? What if you're looking at it all and it's so overwhelming that the despair is starting to creep up on you and you have a hard time focusing or getting started? You know, there are two ways to look at a painting. You can stand back and look at it from afar and see the whole thing, or you can get up close and see a detail. Now, with the home, it's similar to that too. If you stand back and you look at the whole thing, it can be rather overwhelming. But if you'll just move something, just sit where you're sitting, reach over and clean it off. Clean off that table next to you. Take a paper towel and wipe down the surface and put everything back and throw away something and clean it up. And then with the other hand, reach over and do something else. The thing that's nearest to you, clean it up. And if you are overwhelmed by all the cutlery and all the dishes that are in the sink and you don't know where to start, I would just say start by collecting all the spoons. Just collect them all and put them in one spot, or a dish of water if you don't have a dishwasher. But what I would do regarding the kitchen and the dishes is clean the surfaces around it first. Don't just fill a pan of water full of soap and stick all these dishes in if everything around it is falling apart, if they haven't been stacked, if they haven't been wiped, if the table is full of stuff, if the floor is dirty. Here's what I do. I go around, gather up all the dishes, take them to the sink area, and then I wipe down all the tables. And then I sweep the floor, and I will sweep the floor afterwards too, but then I sweep the floor. Then I wipe down the stove, and that'll require moving more things off of that. Then I wipe that down. Then I go to the other side of the sink, and I clean all that off, take any dirty dishes over. Then I start organizing the dishes, and I will put the glassware here, and then the plates, and I'll rinse them all. And of course I have a dishwasher, but if there are just a few, the washing is the last. And if you will clean around it first, just clean around it first, you'll find that you'll have a little more encouragement. It looks good. You can look back at a table behind you and say, oh, that looks nice. And I would like to add, put a little touch of beauty everywhere you go. For instance, you've cleaned the table, add something, you know, a little bowl of fruit or something on the middle, or add a flower or something in the middle there. And just treat yourself to these little pieces of beauty as you go. And doing this, moving these things, helps to balance the mind and take away that frustrating feeling of confusion. Where do I start? Where you're looking every which way and you don't know what to do. So it helps to balance the mind, especially sorting things helps to balance the mind. And I've explained that before. So think of another thing you can do that's very motivating when you've gotten to a point where maybe you've come in from a trip or something and everything's a wreck, or maybe you haven't and it's just that way anyway, is to think of the worst scenario, the things that you have, places you've been or things you've done where you really wanted to get out of there and get back home. And it really makes you feel better about being home. And I'm thinking one would be, excuse me, one would be the last time you went camping and the tent caved in and there was a storm or a rainstorm and everything got all wet, and wouldn't you have really liked to have been in your house? And or maybe you have gotten to where you had to wait somewhere for something, outside of the home, some business you had to do, and you ended up waiting and waiting and waiting and trying to get something done, or you got stuck in traffic. Think of those scenarios and be happy you're not out there doing that, and that you are able to be in the house, and you can make it ideal. You know, you don't have to suffer unnecessarily. You can make your home a wonderful place to be. You can make it ideal for you, a place where you would really like to be. I've suggested this to several people who have said, I wish I could have the kind of home I like. Well, you can. I don't have the ideal home. I don't have the kind of structure I really wanted. I wanted a, Victorian home, but what I decided to do instead is to create that atmosphere in it that I'm looking for by the way I arrange it, and by adding my grandmother's things to it, and by dressing a certain way that envelop this atmosphere. And so you can do that too. You can have a home the way you want it to be. Now, a lot of people think they have to get a new couch and a new chair, and I understand that. If you want one and you can afford it, go for it. What I discovered over the years was that I could throw some beautiful blanket over a worn-out chair that was still, that maybe wasn't completely broken down or anything, and you could still sit on it, just to throw these beautiful, colorful cloths and blankets over them and refresh it, make it look good. So now we want to get to how it is better. I want to go back to the emotion too, and that is you have to be of a state of mind where you're enthusiastic and happy, and the best thing you can do is to think of the worst scenario, like I told you, caught in traffic, in a tent that's got water all over everything, or maybe you've been somewhere where you were kind of stuck and you couldn't get away, maybe a gathering or something, and it made you anxious, and it wasn't pleasant, and so you want to think about those things, because then the home becomes someplace that's exciting to be in. And so if you fall into some kind of discouragement or despair, you're actually closer to becoming ill. If you look on the negative side of life, you'll find it somehow depresses your physical body, and you're more likely to get sick. And the reason I'm sneezing a lot is we're having farming out here, and a lot of the stuff is coming in. So I'm not really sick. And you're no good to anyone, and you're no good to yourself, and you're of no use if you allow yourself to become debilitated and sick. So one of the things you could do to help yourself to be well is to be happy, because it does it lifts you up, and it restores the body. The Bible talks about laughter being good medicine. And so that's why I try to bring in figures of speech and old sayings. I don't know if I have any today, but they help lift you up in your in the most debilitating moments, and it's very, very important. The other thing about work that I want to teach you, and this is a saying from the olden days, is can't. The word can't. It's appropriate to use the word can't sometimes, but we were told when we had that excuse, I can't do this, is that can't never did do anything. And I'm sure you've heard that too. And it's taken me years to understand that, but the word can't was not supposed to be in our vocabulary except in inappropriate things. But regarding your responsibility, your duty, and your work, can't never did do anything. So in bleak times, use bleak times and depressing thoughts as a trigger to go and do something positive to improve yourself or your home. So read something that's good for you, that promotes what's good and lovely, and do not suffer unnecessarily. There are some people that even believe that you have to suffer. It's just you have to suffer most of the time, but you really don't. There's a lot of suffering that you can alleviate. And one of the reasons you're a homemaker is you want to help with the suffering of your own family. and help them to be happy too and make life good for them. So the more morose and negative your thoughts are, the closer you are to poor health. So you want to make sure that you stay healthy, and your thoughts can go a long ways into promoting that. Now, another saying we had in the olden days was when we would do something, like I've made my bed, Mother want to come and see it, and she'll come and see it and say something like, well, it's okay, but it won't win any prizes. Now, when I fix up my house, I want it to win a prize. And you know, women, they'll do just about anything for a prize. However, you have to show some sense about when it's time to just do things just to get by, and when you can afford to do them so well that it would win a prize. There are some times, especially if you have little children, you can't really afford the time to do something to win a prize. You have to just get by. So you could say, well, I cleaned my house today, it won't win any prizes. But you know, you have to know when it's time to do something just to get by because it's necessary, or do something that you can do more carefully and win a prize. Anyway, that's an old-fashioned saying from the olden times. So now we're going to get to people, because your preparation and your dressing and your work and people are all interacting here together. Now today, no one is going to see me, but I want to feel personally dignified. And what I do when this happens, when I'm going to have to spend a couple of days by myself, is I actually think of the past of people who had to come in and prepare a house for a family that was coming there for their a winter weekend or a summer vacation. And so she would come in and get the fire going and put on fresh sheets on the bed and fix a meal. And this is what I do. I've come into this empty house and I'm getting it all ready for someone to come, and they may not come, but that's my job. So I do it anyway. So this is such a, you know, you have to have a new perspective sometimes. You got to just get a new perspective on things, especially as you get older, like I am, where there's more years behind you than there are in front of you. And if you've done the same thing for so long, you need some kind of new perspective, and that's what I'm doing when I do that sort of thing, and think about the people of the past, the hired servants that did things to prepare the way for royalty or for someone else to come into a home. Now I wanted to tell you more about the people, and someone asked me once for a previous video what to do about working around people in your home who tend to be very negative. How can you keep that from debilitating you and stopping you so much? You know, it is rather difficult. Well, you can get very difficult people. And you'll notice that a lot of times difficult people are willing to argue about anything. I mean, you could say the sky is blue, and they'll say, well, that remains to be seen. You know, or you can say, well, we're going to have a wonderful day, and they'll say, that remains to be seen. And they just cannot be happy about life. But I really think that is very wicked. I really do. I think it's very bad for people to depress other people that way. So one of the things I want to say about these negative people, and you can learn a lot from the olden days, especially some of the old movies. And I did mention Wives and Daughters in my previous video. Well, today I'm going to mention The Quiet Man. And if you remember, there was a very negative guy that just quarreled all the time with John Wayne, you know, Sean. And because Sean and Mary Kate were interested in each other, and Mary Kate was his sister. I think that was her name. And the brother began to get real belligerent, and he didn't want her to part with her money. He had her money and he wanted to keep it, so he didn't want her to get married, and especially not to this American. So, and it apparently took place in the 1940s. maybe 1930s, I'm not sure. And so he began to be so belligerent that he was just plain difficult, and they tried different ways of, getting along with him and getting around him, and he was just so against the match. And so the matchmaker decided to play on a problem that this brother had, this quarrelsome, argumentative brother that just wanted to fight all the time. He remembered that the brother had a friendship going with one of the local widows, and it had gone on for years and years and years, and he had never proposed, they had never gotten married, and he had just thought she would always be there. So the matchmaker said, he tried this tactic, and I like this. I can do this. How are things going with you and the widow Talan? Making any progress there? And that shocked this brother so badly, because he realized, uh-oh, that might be something that's under threat. Maybe I should do something about that. And you can do this to people. I did it to a couple of people who wanted to tell me what to do. I don't know why it is that some people will come and visit, and they'll stay a while. We'll take them to the coast, and we'll do all kinds of fun things with them, and be happy, and they'll laugh a lot. They'll even complain that their jaws are aching when they leave, because they've laughed so much at Mr. S, and he's got that, wry, dry humor. And they will lay into us about how bad our country is, and how bad we all are, how bad everything is, and what a rotten, stinking place this is, And so I have used that phrase from A Quiet Man several times. Instead of getting upset and crying, it would usually call me, have a meltdown, what am I supposed to do about it? And as I said before, when I was talking about citizenship, that's how you make your country great again. Love your neighbor as yourself, and love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And this includes what you can do. You can keep your house clean, you can keep your children happy and healthy, you can teach them, and you can be kind and loving to everyone. And that's good citizenship. That's what makes a country great. And so this person was going on and on and on about how bad we are. And I don't want to mention the country, because I like you all out there. And I just think there's just some bad apples everywhere, And this person, we've also had a person from other states, out of state, that will come in and tell us what a terrible state this is. So this man got to talking and going on and on about how bad we all were. And I said, how's that going in your country? How's that working out for you in Lower Slovovia? How are you getting along over there? You getting that all fixed up? Getting the government all straightened out and everything? And it just distracted and shocked him so much. He couldn't go much further. He couldn't get much more fuel out of the I hate America thing anymore, because I was asking him how he was doing in his own country. And so my rule for all these people is, you clean up your country and let me clean up mine. And that's the way we live here. And it's the same with my home and my family. I can't fix yours, but I can fix mine. So now let's move on to, oh yes, the argumentative person. Maybe you have an argumentative friend or relative that for some reason you can't avoid and you can't stop seeing. And this is true. I mean, you can watch all these videos on how to cope with this stuff, and they'll always say, just cut them off and everything. That's not always possible. So one of the things that you got to realize with a negative person and an arguer is that they don't start with what they started saying, what they invented, what they created. They don't start with that. They'll go on and on and on about something until the other person says, look, I don't want to talk about it. Could you leave me alone? I've got to get something done. Then they'll start at that point. They'll start at your point, not their point. They'll start at that point where they got you to react. When you said, could you please leave? Or don't talk about it anymore. And then they smear you all over the place and say, she told me to leave. She told me to be quiet. She's a terrible person. But they don't go back to the beginning where it all started. They'll always start at your point, not their point. The point at which they got you to react. So always remember that. And they're also speaking from their immaturity and their inexperience and their lack of wisdom. So if you could remember that, that's very, very helpful. And my parents taught us a very interesting word, interesting, because it's neutral. So when they're full of this stuff about they're trying to run you down, run your country down, just say interesting. That's interesting. And it stops everything without being too abrupt. So now I'd like to go on to the vinegar right now and give you a few vinegar hints, okay? Now I have a little book on vinegar. You can find these online. You can also find lists online about the white vinegar, and it's made from wood apparently, and the apple cider vinegar. Well, apple cider vinegar is good for if you get cramps in your legs. You can soak a cloth in or bandage in apple cider vinegar, wrap it around your legs, and it will help alleviate the cramps. Also, if you have feet that hurt, like maybe you have a joint in your toes that hurts, you can just pour apple cider vinegar on it, and you'll have pretty nice rest that night. It doesn't seem to bother you. The other thing it does is it can actually help alleviate headache pain. Do you remember the old poem, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water? Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Up Jack got, and home did trot, and as fast as he could caper, went to bed to mend his head with vinegar and brown paper. You can cut strips of brown paper and soak them in vinegar and wrap them around your head for a headache, or even your throat for a sore throat, and other places on your body that ache or whatever. And I just thought that was really interesting. Of course, the less chemicals we can come in contact with, the better for us, huh? And you can also purify the air in your house, spray vinegar around. I read in this book that you could soak a little lavender flower in it, in a little bottle, and that would smell better, but the smell goes away. So now I want to also tell you a story, because I want to have a story, I want to have a hint, and I want to have a poem. I didn't get the poem for today, but I'm going to give you a list of poems for you to look up yourself. And one thing I want to tell you about poetry is that I might not have mentioned in my last video is that if there is no comma and no full stop at the end of a sentence, at the end of a line in a poem, then you just keep reading, because it's just written to look good like that, but some sentences are created to read as full sentences even though they go on to the next line. So you only pause when you're reading poetry. You only pause if there is a comma there or a period. So here are some poems you can look up, and I will try to read them again next time. I couldn't find them. Quickly enough, and so Try Again is actually a poem. I saw it years ago. It had several stanzas in it. Couldn't Be Done. We did that one by Albert A. Guest before. I would suggest that you put that to music and teach it to your children. It has a nice little rhythm for it, and it's a good poem to show how many syllables are. I think it's 7/6, 7/6, 7/6, or something like that, or some of these poems. The other one is called Don't Quit, and the other one is If You Think You Are Beaten, You Are. Remember that one? If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. And if you think that it's impossible, it's a cinch that you won't, something like that. And the other one is It's Easy Enough to Be Pleasant. And I think I remember some of that. When life flows by like a song. But the one worthwhile is the one who can smile when everything goes dead wrong. Now that would be my husband. We could be somewhere lost in the woods. The car would break down, and there'd absolutely be, and we'd be running out of food, and there'd be no hope anywhere, and he will start singing. He just likes the adventure of it, because he's going to have a story after that, and he'll have a story that he can tell. And he has immense faith. It doesn't some of the stuff doesn't bother him. And you have to realize with poetry, I don't know if you know that there are several kinds, and the rhyming poetry is easier to remember because of the beat of it, the meter. But there was another kind of poetry. The haiku poetry was Japanese, and the Hebrew poetry. And both of those types of poetry rhyme the thoughts rather than the words. So it will have two thoughts, especially the Hebrew poetry in Psalms, will have a line that will be one thought, and then another line that will be a similar thought, and then the third line will summarize those two thoughts, and that's all over the Psalms. So there's the poetry with the meter, like somebody said it couldn't be done, and you could also make up a very nice tune that goes with that. And today I am wearing Wet n Wild, and the lipstick is called Pink Ice, and so I will leave you the details about that. Everybody always asks me about that, and everything that I'm wearing today is Wet n Wild, and so and I'm not advertising for anybody, but that's what we have down at the dollar store, and that's what I have. That's what I have on. I can't think of anything else except to tell you that we need to work for a higher king. You know, just you have to have a higher feeling of doing something worthwhile, and not for just a person, and not for just the people. And even if you're in a church, you have to realize too, and I've been a preacher's wife now for 48 years, but I have been in the church all my life, and you realize, of course, that the church members are just people, and they will disappoint you. You have to have your faith in God, and you have to have your values based on the Lord. You cannot follow a person. And so I hope that you'll be careful and not do things just because I'm doing them, because your family will be completely different and have completely different needs. And you'll have a different way of doing things in your house. You're different. But I'm hoping that today, I don't think I'm going to quite make it to an hour. But I would like to leave you with this, and that is to think up, think on the bright side. And I think we're afraid. You know, it's hard to think on the bright side if life has beaten you up and you've had a lot of sorrow. It's hard to get in the habit of thinking on the bright side, because you think that, at least I do, you think, well, if I think on the bright side, I might just abandon all care to the wind and not feel responsible, and then I won't be alert, and then I won't be busy, and I won't fix things. But it's not that. It's just you have to just realize that you can do what you can do, and you can have a certain amount of duty and responsibility, but you cannot think on the negative side, because that will defeat you, and it will defeat your family. And it is, as I said in a previous video, it's like a poison to your body and a poison to your mind. So until I see you next time, I want to thank you all. Those of you who have sent contributions, that is just very nice of you, and I wanted to thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't get to thank you personally. I'm having an adjustment here with my email and with the new computer. And I hope that this has helped you to think up and to talk up. And that's why I gave you the list of poetry. Go look up those poems. Try Again was a poem. Now that's a hard one to find, because the only thing we hung on to as a generation was the words try again. But it was a whole poem at one time. I think it was called If at First You Don't Succeed. Then somebody said it's called It Couldn't Be Done. Don't Quit is another poem. These are not by the same authors. If You Think You Are Beaten, You Are. That's a pretty good poem. And it's easy enough to be pleasant. That's a very, very good poem. So until I see you again next time, thank you for your kind attention, and please leave me a message and tell me what all you were able to get done. I hope you didn't just sit here and watch me. I hope you got something done. Thank you very much, and God bless. Goodbye.